right. Hello, intro to creative writing. Say that correctly. Hello, intro to creative writing, and welcome to week 3. It's time to get started. We've had a couple of weeks where we weren't doing a whole heck of a lot, but now it's time to get started. So the first section that we are going to be diving into is memoir. And the textbook actually refers to it as life writing. Okay. So this is our textbook. Hopefully you have it by now because you need to be reading in here. So the section is about life writing. And they entitled the section that because it's about biography, autobiography, and memoir. So all of those are true to life, about someone's life. And so we are going to be reading that section. I don't have a huge long lecture for this week because really you need to read the section. I did read through the section myself, and pretty much I thought, well, I can't expound on all of this a whole ton. Aside from we need to read this, we need to dig in, and we need to understand how important it is to be able to tell our stories. So if you want to tell it from a memoir perspective, absolutely. Well, not if, that is what we are going to be doing. So I was getting ahead of myself there by saying that we are going to be doing memoir writing for this first round of writing. You'll be reading about biography and autobiography, but we are going to be doing memoir. And memoir is, whether it is a novel length or it is a short piece, memoir is about snippets of your life. It's not your entire life story. It's a story. It's an event. It's a series of events. It's whatever you need to tell in order to get the point of that event across. Why do you need to tell this? Is someone going to learn something from this, or is it just for a good jolly laugh? Whatever the reason you want to write about that particular event and what you want your audience to get from it, you need to be thinking about what is a specific event that is worthy of writing about, something that's going to be of interest or entertaining or help someone to consider a new idea, perhaps. So there are lots of stories in our lives. If you are one of those individuals that wants to sit back and think, oh, I really don't ever have anything interesting happen to me, that isn't true. Think back over your life and come up with a circumstance where you were surprised or you were shocked or you were really sad. Something that elicited a really strong emotion in you, and tell that story. That's what you want to tell. All right. So we want to be thinking about this writing. There are several things that you want to consider, and the text talks about this. Do you write in present tense or do you write in past tense? Do you write about this as if it's already happened, or do you cause your reader to feel it right now as it's happening? That's up to you. I'm not going to tell you one is right or the other is wrong. There is no rule as long as you stay consistent. So if you're going to be telling something, if it's past tense, you want to stay in past tense. Now, when you're telling a story in present tense, that can get a little gray because you might need to lapse into past here and there. And that's perfectly all right. And I'm frozen. Another thing that I will tell you when it comes to memoir writing is we also want, wow, so the screen freezing up just completely distracted me. So present tense, past tense, my brain just went, just frizzled. Oh my word. Look at that. What a strange picture of me. I'm going to pause this a second and see if I can get it to unclog. Okay, that's better. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was sometimes in memoir writing, we don't always remember every detail of a conversation, or we don't always remember every detail of how a situation occurred. And so we find ourselves fictionalizing to a degree, and that's okay. Feel like, give yourself permission for that to be okay. The textbook will talk about that as well, but I wanted to mention that too, that when you are retelling the story, as long as the main thrust of it, the main point of it is still being told, it's still your story. Tell it to the best of your ability, the best that you remember it. Okay. And you won't be going off track. I have a memoir that I'm writing that's basically completely fictionalized, even though it's actually my story. So inside of it, inside of this fiction story, it's massive chunks of actual memoir that are being written. But for me, it's too close of a subject for it to actually be put out as memoir. Like, I need it to be put out as fiction. So that's the way I'm choosing to go about that and to tackle that scenario, because it's about the abuse that I went through in my first marriage. It's hard to write sometimes a memoir because it causes you to dig in deep, and causes you, and you need to dig into emotions, go places inside of yourself that you've been perhaps unwilling to go. Like, mine that stuff, really dig in and pull it out, and let you and who you are pour out onto the page so that the reader feels it. We want to invite the reader in. We want them to have this experience with us. You want them to know what it was like to go to your high school, or to get broken up with in that way, or to be in a car accident that was completely life-changing. You want to know, or you want them to understand how it feels. I will tell you, the best means for me when I'm digging back into a memory of my own, that what works best for me is to put myself into a dark room, turn off the light, turn off all the sounds. So it's just me and the computer screen and a keyboard, and just type out, like, put myself back into the memory, let it happen, and then type it. Just type it, just let it flow. And I did this. I was in a memoir class working on my master's degree, and we had to write about something that happened to us when we were children that scared us. And I had a recurring nightmare when I was a little girl. And so what I did is I went into my room and I shut off the light, sat on the bed with my laptop, and I put myself back into that memory, back into that nightmare. I mean, it was a recurring nightmare. It happened a lot over a period of several years. Like, I would go to bed and be afraid to close my eyes because of that nightmare. And I didn't know how to get rid of it. And it persisted. So when the professor said, write about something that scared you when you were a child, I'm like, oh, that's easy. So I put myself as an adult back into that nightmare, close off the light, shut the door, no distractions, just me and the nightmare. And I asked myself, what do I see? What do I feel? What do I taste? What do I touch? What do I smell? And I just was there. I was like a player in the nightmare. And I listened. And I felt. Right? Smelled. And experienced the nightmare as a whole. And then I allowed it to play, and I wrote it out. When I turned it in, my professor, when he handed it back to me, he said, Dacia, you need to get this published in a horror magazine. Excuse me. Here I am talking about a horror magazine. I just hit the button on my chair that made my hair go down. So anyway, my professor, he told me, he said, you need to get this published in a horror magazine. And so I took his advice, and I submitted it to a literary magazine. It wasn't a horror magazine. It was a literary magazine. And they published it. And it was the very first thing I ever had published. And I tell you why, because I dug in and I wrote from a very dark place. I wrote from a very fear-laced place. I used my senses, I had no distractions. I wrote in the dark, and I really, really bore into that event. And you know what? That nightmare stopped plaguing me after I wrote it out. It's pretty wild. Absolutely wild. And what's even more interesting is after I'd had it published, I was going through some files in my basement, and I came across a paper I had written in 1991 in an English class when I was first in college, where I had written out the same nightmare. And then I was able to compare the two, almost word for word, the same. And it had been 20 plus years since I had written it the first time. It was pretty wild, absolutely wild. But I tell you that to say, we have to dig in. When we're writing memoir, well, when we're writing anything, really, I don't want to give too much away in the future here, but when you're writing, you need to just dig in and cut yourself open. And this is reminding me of something I really want to share with you guys. I had not intended on sharing this. I didn't include it in any of our handouts, but there's an article, actually a blog post by an author that I read quite a while back, and I have been sharing it with my novel writing class. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up here. We're gonna take a look. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up here. 25. Well, let's actually find it on his blog. Not this one. Here it is. 25 of my personal rules for writing and telling stories. This is Chuck Wendig's blog. And I'm sorry that my screen has gone out. I don't know what's going on. I bought a new camera and it's just still not working with anything that I'm doing outside of just talking. So this article, I came across it years ago, and well, he wrote it in 2012, and it impacted me in a very strong way, and it has colored how I write now. I'm going to go ahead and go through it right now with you as part of this week's lecture. I hadn't even intended to do that, but I just feel very strongly about doing it. And this will be in addition to your reading in the textbook, which you really do need to make your way through. So this is 25 of my personal rules for writing and telling stories by Chuck Wendig. All right, something that you need to know about Chuck Wendig is he likes to use cuss words. So hopefully that's not going to be offensive to you. When I use this in class, I will block them out or change them to euphemisms. And I have a hard time sharing things in class that are full of cuss words. So I can't even say that without like smiling and giggling. But anyway, the article is still really good that he wrote. And so it's his personal rules for writing and telling stories. And this very much relates to what we are doing with memoir. So let's go through this. I'm going to go ahead and skip down to the first one here. Most of it's going to relate to fiction. And so you can keep this in mind for a little bit later on down the road when we get into doing fiction writing. But he says, number one, don't write what you know what you write. Saying write what you know limits us from the outset. We only know a limited number of things after all. I know the smell of honeysuckle on a summer's day. I know what it's like to have a toddler, to be a terrible bowler, to slurp up gin from my rat's nest of a beard so as not to waste its herbal booziness. We should certainly write to our experiences, but we cannot limit ourselves only to that. We should be encouraged then to have new experiences, to know and learn, gasp, new things. Write with authority and authenticity. Marry experience with imagination and a ceremony upon the story's page. And see, that goes along with what I was just talking about as far as your memory isn't always going to be spot on when you are trying to recall dialogue or the way an event went down or a specific setting. Sometimes your memory is going to fill in the gaps and make up stuff, and that's okay. It's okay. And Chuck Wendig's giving us permission for that right here as well. Don't write just what you know what you write. But also, I love this part here. He says, write with authority and authenticity. Be as authentic as you possibly can. Marry experience with imagination. Add a little bit of creativity to what you're writing about what's inside. All right. Number 2, bleed on the page. Don't write purely to escape pain and fear. Mine it. Extract those wretched little nuggets of hard black hate, Cole, and use them to fuel the writing of a scene, a chapter, maybe the whole gosh darn book. Cut yourself open, color the words with your heart's blood. I'm an advocate of finding the things you fear and opening old wounds to let them splash onto your characters and inform the tale at hand. We'll know, and we'll feel it too. This is where your experience matters. It's not necessarily in the nitty-gritty of mechanical experience, but rather in the authenticity of your emotional life. And this is true for the opposite as well. Write about the things that thrill you, that stir hope, that deliver unto you paroxysms of tingly exultation. Be true to yourself, and we'll all grow your lingo, Daddy-o. I love this. Bleed on the page. He's saying cut yourself open right from those dark, hurtful, fearful, anxiety-laden places inside of you. If you've had a bout with depression, I know this can be hard, but really dig back into a particular feeling or a particular moment in your depression and write it out. See, what's amazing about doing that is, number 1, it's cathartic for you. And number 2, it's going to let your reader know they're not alone. You could save someone with your authenticity, your willingness to be bold and bleed on the page can end up saving someone else's life. Just can. So when we're considering memoir, dig in. Really dig inside. Go to those places that you've been afraid of and write about those things. Be honest. Say things you would never say in public in your writing. Bleed on the page. Number 3, write the song that sings to your heart. Brands are for corn chips and car commercials. Trends are for great pop music and nightclubs. But you write the book you want to write. It's not like being a writer is a fast track to a dumpster full of cash. So why waste time writing stories that don't speak to you in some way? Besides, the books you wrench free from your own heart and mind will be far greater and far more meaningful than anything delivered to you from the expectations of others. Find the story in you and find yourself in your story. Write the book you want to write. If you got something burning on you, write that. I have that book, and I already mentioned it. It's my memoir, but I'm doing it fictionalized. It's burning on me. And I know there will be people saved, potentially, if I'm willing and have the guts and I'm honest enough to put it out there. Write the song that sings to your heart. Show now, tell later. Show, don't tell is another one of those false dichotomy nuggets of advice. Anytime a piece of forbidding advice exists, you can nearly always produce a corollary example where X, Y, and Z stories utterly violate that precept with great heaping helpings of success. It seems to be fairly well regarded that a lot of the time it's best to default to show, but sometimes, hey, tell is good too. The only problem is when. Here's a good guideline. Never tell in the beginning. Always show first. You don't want to begin the story with an expositional lecture. You read the cereal box as you eat the cereal, not before. You got to get the first spoonful of honey boo-boo bombs on your tongue before you're ready to settle in and read an ingredients list, huh? Order of operations is key. Dessert first, veggies later. Show now. Put off telling as long as you can. Come out of the gate swinging with your writing. Grab your audience. Make them go, oh, with your intro and your beginning. Especially what they're not expecting. I love it. Aim big, write small. Writers need goals. I don't mean one goal. I mean a nearly endless and evolving series of goals. You don't just say, I'm going to write a novel, because duh, that's bare minimum stuff. You want to have a career planned out. This isn't a short game, it's a long con. Look as far down the line as you can, to retirement, to cremation, to the time when nanobots resurrect you to write one more best-selling holovid. That way, you can always course correct to try to move yourself further toward those goals. But, whereas your career is a long con, each story really is the short game. You want to keep your head in the story. You want to treat it like it's everything, like everything hangs on this one project, in part because it may. To put it differently, have the larger path plotted out, but focus on each step upon the path as if it is your last. Oh, this applies like all over the board, doesn't it? This doesn't just apply in writing. This is life. Have some goals. Have some goals and reach for those goals, but give yourself some flexibility with them as well, right? Like, have your long con planned out, but realize that every project, every piece of writing, every decision that you make is part of the short game. And you never know which piece of that short game is going to be the vital chunk, right? Is going to be the thing that you get published, or that decision that you make that's going to turn your life in a wonderful direction or not great direction. You just never know. But he's saying you can always course correct. So have those goals plotted out for yourself in writing. Number 6, character is everything. Here's how you know that character is the most important component of storytelling. When you remove it, the story dies. It's like yanking the walker out of an old dude's hands. You can remove the plot and the characters will still make one. Setting, story can work without one. Hell, no setting is a setting. Theme, someone will add their own mood, or their own. Mood, you can steer the mood, but you can't control it. Mood, like art and profanity, is in the many eyes of the monstrous D&D beholder. Character is why we show up. It's why we watch movies and read books. Character is the linchpin of story. To unpack that a little more. So what he's saying here is, even when we're writing memoir, character matters. And so if you're going to be discussing yourself and others in your life, make sure that you're thinking of them from the audience's perspective. What do you need to give the audience so that they can be in your story too? So that they can see your mother, so they can hear your father, so they can know what it is to ride down the street on a bicycle with your best friend while she's taunting you from halfway up the block, right? And you're watching her pigtails bounce in the wind. Give description to character. Make your characters full of life. And I'm getting ahead of myself. So number 7 is, audience is the monkey on the character's back. See, here's the deal. We're all humans. Well, except you over there, you robot asshole. No, don't talk to me. I shall not abide your bleeps and blorps and murderous metal intent. Humans tell stories, and when we do, we tell them about other humans. And here you say, wait, that's not right. We tell stories about unicorns and intelligent spaceships and mole men. And yes, technically true. But those are always stand-ins for people. We view all characters through the lens of our own humanity. It's the same reason trees only read magazines about trees, printed on the flesh of humans. The circle of life. Character is how the audience gets through your story. Character is the vehicle. You have to build characters even when you're writing memoir. You are a character in your memoir. What does your audience need to know about you in order to see you, to hear you, to feel you, to know you, as well as your other characters? Plot is soylent green. Oh, I love that. So funny. Said it before, but let me codify it now. Plot is not externally driven. I mean, it can be fine, yes. You can create a laundry list of external events that occur where characters are dropped into the proceedings like a pukey 4-year-old forced to ride a roller coaster. But that's not the strongest nor the most organic way to approach plot. Plot is soylent green. Now, soylent green is from a movie like the 70s, where Soylent Green was a food product being fed to the masses that was made of humans, of decomposing flesh. Oh. So plot is Soylent Green. Plot is made of people. Characters create, drive, and modify plot. They're not strapped into the ride. They're building the fishing roller coaster as it barrels forward. They change the story with every bad decision, every punch thrown, every intense desire, and madcap fear. Too many storytellers force events. They shove the plot around like a schoolyard bully. Let the characters handle it. Let it be on them. The simplest plot is your characters do things and other characters respond. Let your story be your story. Let it be told by the characters, you and the other characters. That's why we read. We're interested in the human elements. Let your story be human. Let it be full of emotion. Let it be full of life. Let it be real for your reader. Number 9, conflict is the food that feeds the reader. Characters exist in a flat line until we challenge them. Sometimes they challenge themselves. Sometimes they're challenged by other people, by nature, by robots, or by fungal infections in and around one's nether country. Stories need conflict across the physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual spectra. Accidents, betrayals, cataclysm, desperation, excess. These are the letters in the alphabet of conflict. So your story, your memoir, has to be character-driven, but it also has to have conflict. There has to be an element of conflict in your story. And if you can put 2 or 3 elements of conflict in there, all the better, as long as they don't become confusing. So we have to make sure that when we're writing, we are focusing on the element of conflict and ensuring that it is there so that it feeds our readers. Very important that the conflict exists. Number 10, fish trust. I like the word fish. I used to make my students say fish instead of the F word in class. I still do sometimes. Fish trust. We think we want trustworthy storytellers. Trust is a positive trait, and why would we want anything different in a storyteller? The audience thinks it knows what it wants. Happy endings, triumphant protagonists, defeated villains. A book that dispenses chicken McNuggets at the end of every chapter is a reward. But getting what we want, what we expect, is snooze-tacular. Trust in a storyteller is overrated. Safety is meaningless. The storyteller has to do what the storyteller has to do, which is hurt the character. And by proxy, the audience. The storyteller is an evil dungeon master or a tricksy dominatrix. What the audience really wants is to acquiesce to the tale told. They want to be surprised by a particularly inventive dungeon trap or shocked when someone closes alligator clamps on your wriggly bits. We want to trust our storytellers only so far as to say, I trust that I cannot trust you. Be bold in your writing. Say things people don't expect. Be honest. Honesty can really be shocking, but it's also refreshing once it's out. So keep in mind, fish trust. Don't give them happy endings and chicken McNuggets through the entire story. There has to be those elements of shock. There has to be those times when they're afraid, where they get angry. They need to experience your emotions with you. Take them there. And 11, the dual function of story. Good story serves 2 functions. 1, it makes coffee, and 2, it shoots lasers. Wait, that can't be right, checks notes. Oh, see, sorry, wrong page. Those are the 2 things I want my cybernetic arm to do. Whatevs. Story. Yes, story. Good story does 2 things. 1, it makes us feel, and 2, it makes us think. It engages us emotionally and intellectually. Some authors misunderstand the story's purpose and spend too long mired in action and entertainment and forget that we actually have to care about the characters, about the outcome, that it's essential we come out of the book having both a visceral reaction and a reaction that makes us want to sit down with friends over pie and whiskey to talk about what we just read. Making someone think and feel is not entertaining in the strictest sense, but it's why stories matter. It's why we tell stories. It's why we do this. It's why we love writing. We want to cause the audience to think and to feel. It's dual. Both need to be there, and both are there when we are honest, authentic, and we dig inside of ourselves and we use the senses. Do those things. Number 12, embrace the holy shnikes moment. I want to punch you in the stomach. With my words, relax. Put down the restraining order already. When you read my work, the ideal thing for me is to provide you with at least one moment where you gasp, where your eyes go wide and your jaw hangs loose like a broken porch swing, where you let out 3, maybe 4 drops of pee because the story caused you to lose your bearing for just that moment. It's key as a storyteller to try to orchestrate those moments where you violate expectation and drop a bunker buster on the characters. Be careful though. The trick to the holy stuff moment is that it needs to feel organic, so that after the smoke is cleared and the trauma is worn thin, the events that transpired seem in retrospect like the only way it could have happened. So those holy shnikey moments that you're going to write about in your memoir, embrace them, flush them out. Give them flesh and bones, write them, be honest, be authentic, really dig in, embrace it. Number 13, here's how description works. A persistent question in terms of writing is what and how much do I describe? Lovecraft describes every lamp and carpet fiber with intimate, bewildering detail, which he can get away with and you most likely cannot. Here's how you know what to describe. Ready? Is your mind quivering like the dumpy haunches of an overweight pony? Describe those things that break the status quo, that defy expectation. We know what a chair looks like, so you don't need to describe it, unless it's got a broken leg, or is of some unusual art period, or has blood on it, or is made of mouse bones and rat whiskers, or sings show tunes. The things that need description are the things that, to risk redundancy, the audience needs described. If they cannot escape this chapter without knowing how this thing smells, then you better talk that stench up post haste. I love number 13. I think this is fantastic. We have to be always considering, what does my audience need from me in order to know what this chair looks like? You see it in your head. And we take for granted that other people are just going to understand when we say the brown chair that I sat in every day of my life. Well, they need more than that, because they don't know, was it a plush chair? Was it a wooden chair? Did it have 3 legs, 4 legs, 5 legs? How tall was it? They need that information if you want them to have an authentic experience with you. So describe what needs described. 14, the rule of threes. When in doubt, the rule of threes is a rule that plays well with all of storytelling. When describing a thing, no more than 3 details. So when you're describing that chair, 3 details. Wooden, counter height, what's a third? My brain just went empty. Wooden, counter height, no back on it. What 3 details do you need to include? So a character's arc, 3 beats, a story, 3 acts, an act, 3 sequences, a plot point culminating in a mystery of a twist, at least 3 mentions throughout the tale. This is an old rule and a good one. It's not universal, but it is a good place to start. Number 15, every story is an argument. Every story is you saying something. That's theme. Even memoir. You are going to write about a particular event in your life for a reason. You will choose an event for a particular reason. So What is the reason? Maybe it's the theme that the audience discovers, maybe it isn't. But just the same, every story is you making a case for something. It's a thesis you're trying to prove. You're trying to say that love is everything, or love is hopeless, or that nature will defeat man, or man will defeat himself, or bees will defeat bears, or robots are fishing awesome. I don't know, man, I'm not you. Have a point of view, have a perspective. Let your fiction state a case and argue that stuff till it's blue in the face. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about saying something. Now, it doesn't matter what you're writing, memoir, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, doesn't matter what you're writing. Understand that it's an argument. Whatever it is, it's an argument. It's you saying something. It's your point of view. So argue it. Tell it well. 16. Metaphor is what elevates us above the chimpanzees. He says, I'm going to leave this here. Wink a couple of times, maybe nudge you and walk away. 17. Stories are like people. They need oxygen. All aspects of a story need time to breathe. Your story isn't one of those amusement park rides that shoots you 100 feet up straight into the air. A story isn't a race to the end. Plus, that kind of thing will surely cause you to void your bowels upon whatever meth-scarred carny is operating that so-called amusement ride, a ride that hasn't been serviced since 1972 and still has the blood of the teenage girl who died on it greasing all of its diabolical gears. Let the tale have peaks and valleys, peaks of action, tension, violence, then valleys of reflection, emotion, fear, desire. The oxygen is thin at the peaks, thick in the valleys. The peaks get taller as the story goes, and the valleys grow deeper. To go back to the show versus tell thing, it's better to show at the peaks and tell only in the valleys. Our stories need to breathe. They need to have peaks. They need to have valleys. You're taking your reader on a roller coaster. This is not just shoot up into the sky and stay at a high level. They need to breathe. So you need to come down, go back up, come down, go up the mountain, come down to the valley. Let your story breathe. And number 18, care less. Haha. This is a really important one. And this is for all of you right now, no matter what you're writing and in life. Care less. This is a recent revelation for me, but one I'm keeping close for the near future. Sure, it seems an odd thing to suggest that we should care less than we already do. It seems dismissive, disrespectful even. But authors care too much. In my experience, we are far too worried about what other people think. Let me stare at you for a moment on that one. We care well beyond the gates of rationality. We let the perfect sit in its impossible to reach treehouse, pelting us with sticks and stones and pieces of old G.I. Joe figures when we really should be happy, aiming firmly for the good. Caring less frees you. It frees you to write a bad draft. You should always let yourself write a bad draft. No one writes a good draft when they sit down to start writing, so stop getting mad at yourself and thinking you're a bad writer if your rough draft is, oh my gosh, dare we say it, rough. It's supposed to be. It's a rough draft. Let it be rough because it is. Embrace that. It frees you to write a bad draft and fix it later. It frees you from feeling stung by every not 5-star review. It frees you from the fear of the editor's slashing pen. It frees you from the paralysis of rejection. It frees you from escaped Russian circus bears who want to sex you up with their earth sign. Whoa, wait, no, actually, I'm still afraid of that. Where was I? Ah, yes, care less. Note that the lesson here isn't don't care. You should care. You should also calm the fish down a little is all I'm saying. This is a brilliant piece of advice. And this is just for all life in general. It's not just for writing, but you really need to care less. Like, calm down. Why are you so worried about what everybody else thinks? Like, calm down. It's a rough draft. Everybody's rough draft is bad. Even Stephen King has a bad rough draft. I mean, no one sits down and writes something perfect right out the gate. No one. So stop telling yourself that they do, because they don't. And you won't. And that's okay. So really, stop being mean to yourself and stop saying, oh, I can't, and I'm so bad at this, and blah, blah, blah. Stop it. Stop it. Care less. Do care, but let your editing process be where you really dig in and you do the caring. Right now, you're just writing the story because the story needs told. Just tell the story. Get it out. Stop being mean to you. Love you. Be nice to you. In my family, we say this. We say, love you. Oh, it's so great. So great. Love you. Seriously, do love you. Care for yourself. Right? But care less about the work. Just write it. Just be free. Free yourself. Good stuff. 19, realize your reach. You can only control so much. You can't control agents or publishers or professors or the audience, unless you're some kind of Pied Piper Svengali, which actually explains how some tremendously poopy books get such rabid fan throttling. You can control your story. You control characters, plot, the words on the page, the rhythm, the pacing. You control the quality of the work, so control that. Write the best book you can possibly write. Everything else is a leaf on the river. You can maybe puff out your cheeks and blow it this way or that, but so much is left to the vagaries of fate. Control what you can and abide the rest. Realize your reach. 20. Love 20. Love 20. Harden the fish up, Care Bear. The writer's back is studded with arrows, blow darts, quills, one-star reviews, red pens, rejection letters rolled into tight little tubes and shellacked with editor's spit so as to form the equivalent of prison shivs. It's hard out there for a wandering pen monkey. We don't have the equivalent of a hobo code with chalk marks on the sidewalk indicating dangerous vanity press lives here, or deluded self-publisher blog high on his own ego incoming, or that away lurks a mean old editor face. So cultivate calluses. Secrete enzymes to build your own authorial exoskeleton. Learn to take a punch. No glass jaws in writing. Learn to take critique. Peer review, critique, they are essential to growth in writing, and not just writing, in life. So harden the fish up, Care Bear. Get stronger. Have thicker skin. Take critique. Learn from it. Use it. Grow from it. Ask questions of your critiquers. I got a 1-star review on Amazon. It was on the book, The American Queen, and this was several years ago. And because I can navigate the internet a little bit, I figured out who wrote the 1-star review, and I figured out how to email this person. So I did. I emailed her and I said, can I talk to you? This is the author. I really would like to talk with you about your review. And of course, she was initially a little freaked out. But long story short, we ended up having a really good back and forth exchange over email. What I came to find out was she had loved the story so much that when the ending happened and it was all too nice and neat and tied up in a bow, it made her mad. It made her so mad that she got right on Amazon and gave it a 1-star review and said, I would not recommend this book to anyone. And I, of course, was like, I didn't take it personally. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible writer. I should never write again. Oh, no, I wanted to know why. And what I found out from this person, her name was Nancy, is Nancy. She's still living. And we're still connected. We are connected over LinkedIn, communicate occasionally. What I found out helped me change the book. So there's a new version now, and it doesn't end where it ended before. I was able to... Sorry. Oh my gosh. I don't know how to make this stop. All right. I seriously apologize for that. That was a particular family member who has a very particular ringtone on my phone. Oh my goodness. I should not mean for that to go off. All right. Certainly not at all. But we're just going to keep moving forward. So harden the fish up, Care Bear. That's where we were. We have to learn to take a punch. So I was telling my story. I wrote more for the American Queen, and now the book is almost double the size that it was initially. And it's all because of a 1-star review that I didn't take personally, that I chose to ask questions about. And I learned that the character didn't deserve everything tied up and happy and tied in a bow at the end of the book. And I thought about what Nancy said, and I realized she was right. See, other people can see mistakes that you can't see. They will see things that you are completely oblivious to. Now, the thing about that is you're going to have multiple readers potentially, and this one loves it, that one doesn't. So then you have to wade through their opinions to determine which you're going to listen and follow, but take none of it personally. None of it. Harden the fish up, Care Bear. Number 21, Completo el Pupo. Finishing a story will separate you from most of the other writers out there in author land. Finish your workspace case. Here, let me put it to you this way. Finishing the worst piece of stuff story you've ever written will feel 1,000 times better than not finishing the most brilliant tale you've ever spun. Achieve narrative orgasm. Yes. Finish what you start. 22, read your work out loud. Oh, this is one of those rules that you hear in Comp 1 and everybody wants to go, oh no, I can't do that. How embarrassing. Oh, stop with the embarrassing stuff. Read your work out loud. Don't give me that look. Read your work out loud. Don't argue. Don't fight. It will help. I promise. I promise. I guarantee it. If you find it didn't help you, let me know, and I will let you taser me in the face. And by me, I mean some other guy who'll be my stand-in, probably some real estate agent or toll booth attendant. Chuck Wendig. 23. Haters gonna hate. Fish them. They're part of the ecosystem. Drink the hate like it's Kahlua and cream. Inspiring love and hate is better than inspiring a middle-of-the-road moderate mushy shrug. I'd rather have, your story made me meme the mailman just for delivering it to me, than a quivering, haters gonna hate. Let them. Let them. Does it really matter? Why does it matter? You have to ask yourself, why does it matter? If you're good with you, you keep doing you. You just keep on going, right? Just be you, do you, care less. Haters gonna hate, fish them. Harden the fish up, Care Bear. 24. Advice on the nature of writing. Writing advice is neither good nor bad. It just is. It either works for you or it doesn't. No one piece of advice is truly golden, with the exception of maybe finish your stuff and don't be a dork. It's all just that, advice. It's no better or worse than someone telling you what route to take to get to the zoo or what shirt to wear to that trailer park wedding. Like with every tool, pick it up, test its heft, give it a whirl. If it works, keep it. If it fails, fish and ditch it. Give writing advice no more importance than its due. And then 25, write like the end is nigh. The best advice I can give right now is write like you have no time left. Write like you've got a slow-mo bullet tumbling towards your head and you can't get out of the way. Write like the end times are here, like the Mayans were right, and in a few short months, we're all going to die in a tidal wave, earthquake, pyroclastic, stuff fit, bird attack. Think about that. Let's say you had 2 years left on your clock. What book would you write? What story inside you struggles to get to the front of the line, screaming and yelping and waving its arms like a drowning man? Write that story. It doesn't have to be the only thing you write. You can take paycheck jobs, but make time for that kind of writing. Writing isn't just about giving the audience something. It isn't just entertainment. It's about giving to yourself too. Because bad news, maybe you have 2 years left. Maybe you have 20 or 40 or 60, but we're all going to end up under the Grim Reaper's writing mower. So get busy writing what you want to write, or get busy sucking exhaust. So there is Chuck Wendig's 25 of my personal rules for writing and telling stories. I love that article. I've read it so many times to many students. It is impactful. It has a lot of golden nuggets inside of it for you, things that you need to consider and think about as you are journeying into this world of writing. If you're interested in learning how to express yourself on paper, through your fingers, he has a lot of good information in that piece, and you can look it up online. I did not think to add it to our curriculum. It just popped into my head today, but it definitely suits what we're doing in this memoir section. We need to be authentic. We need to have a theme. We need to not worry what other people think. We need to be bold. We need to dig in with our emotions and pour our hearts onto the page. All good stuff. And I'm super excited to see where you go with this and what you're going to end up turning in. We're going to go back to Google Chrome. I'm going to open up Blackboard here for us. So here is, you're not going to be able to see all of this just yet, but this is from my view. Weeks 3 through 5, memoir/life writing. Week 3, this is where I'm going to be putting this lecture right now that I'm doing, will be in this week. So you can see the readings for this week and the 2 discussion boards. So you'll watch this video, you'll do the readings, and you will complete both of these discussion boards. Then next week is when you're going to begin writing. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and open up both weeks 3 and 4 for you. So if you would like to go ahead and do both weeks, you have 2 weeks to get all of that done, but that will give you the opportunity to go ahead and start your memoir writing now. The rough draft is going to be due February 16th. Peer reviews will be due March 20 or February 23rd, but we'll talk more about that when we get there. So down here are the directions. That was the word. Wow. I'm having a lot of like brain freezes today. This is where the description for your memoir rough draft is. So I'm going to go ahead and go over it. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and we'll open up weeks 3 and 4 both for you. So we're going to write a 2,500 word memoir, complete in MLA format, and choose from these prompts. And so there are 10 prompts here. You can choose one of these. Run Grammarly, a words editor, on your draft prior to rough draft submission, and turn it in here. Okay, so you'll click on memoir piece rough draft and turn it in here, but also in the peer review group via group wiki. So you'll also go right here above it, and you're going to click on peer review groups for memoir workshop, find your group, and upload your rough draft in there as well. Rough drafts are due on February 16th, and then the peer reviews will be due by February 23rd. And I will, in week 5, I will do another little video lecture on peer review and how we're going to be doing that, and expectations and all of those things, tips, tricks, those kinds of things. So there are different ideas here. What is a moment where you were afraid to do something but did it anyway? Make a list of every area of expertise that you have. Then choose one of those areas of expertise and write for 15 minutes about what you've learned about that expertise. Begin every paragraph with the phrase, I learned. That can be a little difficult, but again, we're going to go for 2,500 words. So you're going to may have to write for more than 15 minutes, right? Think back to the first time you met the love of your life. Describe the situation and how you felt the first time you saw them. 4, share the story of one time you were betrayed. 5, have you ever encountered death? Either the death of a loved one, animal, or stranger. Write about your encounter with death and how you experienced it. What is the biggest adventure you've ever experienced? Write about it. You've traveled through time and encountered a younger version of yourself. What life lesson would you share with yourself? Tell yourself the story of how you learned the lesson. Describe your surroundings right now. What memories do your surroundings evoke? Write about a life or death situation you experienced. Think of a moment in your life where you had to choose between two very good things, like love or money, fun or responsibility, happiness or duty, then write about it. Now, honestly, it says to choose from these prompts, but as long as you are doing a memoir, you're writing about something from your life, something that's happened to you, something that is in your memory bank, it's pretty much open. You are writing about you, an event in your life, moments in your life. This is not an autobiography. This is not your whole life story. This is moments, a glimpse, 2,500 words. All right, so let's go back here. Oh, I see what I need to do. Okay. I'm going to change this. You guys are watching me do that, and you're all like, what is she doing? All right, once I get this video, whoa, that's trippy looking. Once I get this video converted and saved to my computer, then I'm going to upload it right there into week 3. So you have weeks 3 and 4 both open, and you can make your way through that information and go ahead and get started on the memoir. And then in week 5, we will do peer review. Okay. All right. Text me with questions. I'm always available. So I hope you guys are having a super, super awesome time so far. Yeah. Let you go.